So today we're privileged to have a friend of mine and someone we've known each other for probably 3-4 years now, or maybe more than that, maybe. And it's interesting. Here I am. I got out as a Navy corpsman E4, and I'm working on projects and on different things with an admiral, which I never thought would actually ever happen in my life. But I'm also 61 now, so I guess it's kind of sinking in that it's possible. But we're talking with Rear Admiral Victor Hall. Thanks for doing this. And this is a C-suite insider conversation. So these are conversations where, let's imagine that there's some young sailor or Marine or airman or soldier or whatever sitting at a lunch table next to us. And we're talking business, or we're talking careers, we're talking experiences or wisdom or insight. If they could hear what you're about to tell them, it could possibly be a game changer for them, right? So that's what these C-suite insider conversations are all about. So tell us a little bit. So you retired after 39 years?
Yeah, 39 years. If you would have asked any of my shipmates when I first joined the Navy that my journey would have ended this way, they all would have laughed at you, because the man I was when I was 17 versus the man I ended up when I retired are not quite the same guy, and that's just blessed through evolution. But I enlisted actually in the Navy right out of high school at 17, like a lot of guys did. And it was an unpopular time. Vietnam was, still going on. It wasn't cool per se, to be in the military. But I was one of those kids, came from a poor family. I'm the oldest of 8. Really had, other than my mother, really not a lot of direction as far as what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew we couldn't go to college because I didn't have the money. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do anyway. So
where did you grow up?
In Cincinnati. Yeah. Okay. Born and raised, and in a part of town called the North Side. And that was, if you ever look at the south side of Chicago, that's kind of the Cincinnati area that, those who got out alive felt very fortunate, let alone, come out ahead. I'm blessed. Like I said, I'm the oldest of 8, and all of my brothers and sisters have ended up very well, in professions, in various genres, but we were able to dodge that environmental traps that, a lot of people will blame or use excuses for, or why I failed is because where I grew up, or why I failed because, nobody cared. I mean, that plays a part at times. I do believe that. But a lot of it has to do with family support. All you need is one, and for me, it was our mother, strong woman, and didn't let us slack off, did our homework, even though it sucked, we did our homework. And being the oldest of 8, I will preface this too, I'm half Japanese. My mother's Japanese. And so we were raised in that Japanese culture, so to speak, of family, where the oldest ends up with a lot of responsibilities. You're responsible for the children underneath you. And like I had 7 ducklings that, I was responsible for, all my, growing up. And so when I graduated at 17, I decided the best thing for me to do is go away, And so the Navy looked very, very good for me. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do in the Navy. And my father, who was a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, my whole family's Marine Corps. So and I'm the oldest grandson. So what I ended up doing is, talking about the Navy and really upset everybody because they wanted me to be a Marine to carry the Tradition 1. And my father was a lifer, and I told him, I said, Dad, I've been in the Marine Corps for 17 years. You know, I've lived it. I know how to spit shine shoes. I know how to do brass because he made me do all his stuff all the time. Right. So anyway, so I said, I'm going to go in the Navy. He said, well, be a corpsman. And I go, well, what's that? He goes, well, he says, you did good in school. You like science, like, you know, it's medical. I go, oh, okay, I'll do that.
Well, the Marines have a very unique relationship with their corpsmen too, don't they?
Oh yeah, and I learned that.
Come into it from your dad?
Say again?
Did your dad tell you about that as well?
No, he was still pissed that I wasn't going in the Marine Corps. So, but he said, be a corpsman. I go, okay. And I had no idea what that meant. So I went and joined the Navy, told the recruiter I want to be a corpsman. He told me, sure, no problem. You know, your scores are good, no problem. So I get to boot camp, do my boot camp thing. And when they, you sit down with the career. Say again?
Where did you go to boot camp?
Great Lakes. Okay. Yeah, I went to Great Lakes. And it was in July. So I'll never forget that. But when you get there and after a certain part of time, you know, well, you remember this, they sit you down with your career guy and says, you know, what are you going to be in the Navy? And I go, oh, I'm going to be a corpsman. You know, I told my recruiter and they go, well, he didn't write anything down, you know, so we don't have a spot for you for a corpsman, you know?
Oh man.
I go, are you kidding me? He goes, no, but what would you like to be? I go, well, here's what you're qualified for. Electronics, aviation, anything in aviation, electronics, a lot of things in that area, a lot of aviation stuff they gave me. And I go, I'll say aviation electronics. I have no idea, but sure, you know. So I go through boot camp, and when I get out and they hand you your orders after you graduate, it was Seaman Apprentice Hall. I go, aye, sir. Here's your orders. You're going to report to the USS Leary as a storekeeper.
Oh man!
I said, you got to be kidding me. So the number 2 blow, I end up going to Norfolk, Virginia. I have to report to this ship called the Leary. Now, notice I've never been on a ship, never been really to the ocean, right? And so I get there, and it's a World War II destroyer. It was built in 1945. And I go, oh, this can't be happening to me. This can't be. So anyway, so I go on the ship, and I report on, and I salute the quarterdeck and, you know, the flag and the officer of the deck. Come on board, and I go, hi, I'm Seaman Apprentice Hall. I'm here as a storekeeper, striker. And the guy looked at my order. He goes, nah, I don't think so. We don't need any storekeepers. So he sent me to deck division. And I don't know if you know what deck division is, but those are the guys. No, they're the paint scrapers. They're the janitors, basically. Yeah. You know, the exciting part is you're on the bridge of the ship, you know, and you learn to steer it and all that stuff while you're underway. But yeah, that was like another bottomless pit. I go, oh no. So, and I come, but the smart thing I did, I'll tell you, is once I got on board the ship, one of the first people I got to know was the corpsman. And on a destroyer, we had a chief independent duty corpsman and a second class petty officer. And so I got to know the petty officer and kind of told him my story and what I want to do. And I said, listen, on my off hours, do you care if I come hang out and just kind of watch what you do, and kind of just for my own? And he goes, sure. So I hung out in sick bay all the time. He taught me how to do shots. He taught me how to do a lot of stuff. And some of it I already knew from like first aid stuff I knew from Boy Scouts, but some of the more detailed things. And I guess we were doing a war game and we were in the Mediterranean and we had a fake casualty on the bridge, and I'm on the lee helm. So I was free to move around a little bit. And so when the guy went to the ground, I assisted the patient, you know, and stabilized him and waiting for the corpsman and the rescue teams to get there. And I'm, you know, attending to the casualty, and the skipper sitting in his chair and he's looking down at me and he goes, Hall, where do you learn all that junk? They go, well, some Boy Scouts, to be honest, sir. And I said, and plus, at sick bay, petty officer Graham, remember his name? Petty Officer Graham took me under his wing and, helped me out. I wanted to be a corpsman, but didn't they didn't have a spot for me. He goes, put a chit in for Corps School and we'll see what we can do for you. I go, oh, thanks, sir. So I put a chit in and we continue our med cruise, and we end up in Palma de Mallorca for some R&R. And I'm on the beach with some of my buddies, and the messenger of the watch comes running down. And he goes, Hall. I go, what? He goes, you need to get back to the ship right away. The skipper needs to talk to you. And I go, oh, that's never good.
No, usually
so
not.
I'm running back to the ship trying to think, what the hell did I do?
Right.
So.
And you're still a seaman, or you're a second?
No, I'm still I'm a SN at the time.
Okay.
I did make E3 on the ship. So I get there, and I go into his cabin, do the knock, and he goes, Hall. I go, yes, sir. And he goes, you're going to Corps School. I go, sir? He goes, yeah, is that approved? I go, awesome. He goes, I said, when do I go? He goes, pack your stuff right now. You're leaving in about 2 hours. And so They took me from Palma, flew me to Rhoda, and then from Rhoda flew me to Great Lakes, and I started my school. And now I'm thinking, oh, life is good. Things are starting to go in my way. And then I go to Corps School, do well, and I'm thinking, I went to Corps School at Great Lakes. Yeah. I'm thinking, well, good, I'll just stay at Great Lakes, have 3 meals a day, nice beds and barracks and the whole 9 yards, easy breezy. Graduate Corps School, get your orders. Hall, HN Hall then. I go, sir. And he goes, here's your orders, 2nd Marine Division, Camp Lejeune. And I go,
they didn't tell you about that, huh?
What? No, I had no idea. And I go, oh my God. I guess because Vietnam was winding down, they were short a corpsman, go figure.
Yeah.
And so they shipped, and I was so upset. I'll never forget that day. And I actually teared down my cheek when I got to Camp Lejeune. They drove me in a Jeep, dropped me off at this Quonset hut. It was just about past twilight in the evening. Nobody was there to greet you or tell you what to do. And so I'm standing there in the sandy road thinking, what did I ever do to deserve this? Well, it turns out that was the most impactful moment in my entire life. That changed my course forever, for the better. It turned out to be the best thing that could ever have happened to me, was to get with the 2nd Marine Division. And I did that for all my enlisted career with, as I finished up, I got out as a 2nd class petty officer, and got to be with, do everything the Marines do, on the air, on the ground, at sea. We did it all. And it changed kind of my whole perspective of things, and how adversity is not always negative. And that's hard, because when you're in the moment, adversity stinks.
Yeah.
But if you look at the long game, and you as an individual don't change, it can be a very strengthening thing. And like I said, this, what I call, for a young kid, these roadblocks in what my thought process was pretty profound. And so it changed my life so much. Out of my 39 years in the Navy, I spent well over 26 of those years on the Marine Corps side. I always tell people I'm more green than I am blue, and looking from a combat medicine, because what I ended up doing was getting out of getting my honorable discharge, finishing my college, and then came back in. Because the irony is, when I was in a young guy, the only thing I wanted was out. That's how a lot of the guys are. Counting the days to get out, 2-digit midget, all that stuff.
Right.
But once I get out in what we call the real world, and did my finished my college, then all I wanted to do was get back in.
So did you have any college at all while you were in, or did you start?
Yeah, I did. Well, I did while I was in. Obviously, I joined right out of high school, but while I was in, a friend of mine, suggested that because he was doing it too, take some courses. And I'll tell you, that's if you can
I
do
started
that.
I started at Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa at the University of Maryland.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're big back in the day. I
Yeah.
mean, when you look at remote learning, they were one of the choices. I went since I was in North Carolina at Lejeune. I did the bulk of mine in East Carolina University. Had a satellite on base and it's really good because you got a single enlisted guy. A lot of times, if they use their time right, has some free time. And I just felt since the Navy was going to help me pay for pay for it, and I would just go, and it was a couple evenings a week. It was no big deal. Didn't mess up my social life.
Right.
But where it paid dividends is when I got out, because when I got out and went full time at the University of Cincinnati, the stuff that I took
You
while I
got
was
out completely. You didn't like
no,
the
I got out
you pick
completely.
up the tab, and you had the GI Bill, or
Yeah, I had a GI Bill.
okay, but you didn't. You weren't on, duty assignment going to college.
No. I wasn't
You
one
went
of those.
out completely. Okay.
Yeah, I said sayonara. It's time for me to bid you farewell. I want to see what else is out there. Because at the time, I thought I had really written out that journey. That chapter of my book.
Was that
I
4 years
was
then? 4, or did
5.
you extend 5 years? Okay.
Yeah, and so I went ahead and in my vision, it was all about the next journey, and so that's what I did. Went back to the
What was
university.
your degree in then? What did you get your?
My degree was in, believe it or not, it was nuclear medicine.
Okay.
So I had a bachelor's in nuclear medicine. And once I got that, I applied for a commission in the Medical Service Corps as a radiation safety officer, radiation health officer. And the first time I applied, and here's a trick. The first time I applied for a commission, I didn't get it because I went under nuclear medicine and they said, well, we really don't have any spots for nuclear medicine in the officer corps. And so I looked up, so I got the brochure of radiation health officer and I read it and I go, well, I do all that. So I wrote my application based on the qualifications that they were asking for. And the second time I got the letter saying, hey, you've been accepted as a direct commission. So, and it was interesting because I had joined the reserves during this time. And so, on Friday, I was petty officer second class Hall. On Monday, I was ensign Hall. And they were supposed to send me to.
How did that make you feel that weekend?
Pretty elated. I didn't understand it a whole lot, but I always felt I wanted to be an officer because having been around a lot of Mustangs and non-Mustangs, I always felt a Mustang officer could do because they understood what we in the trenches were living every day.
Right.
So I was elated, but the biggest mistake I made is on Monday. I was called ensign Hall, but I wasn't ensign Hall. I was the same guy that was there Friday in my mind, and so instead of Chief Snyder or whatever, it says, hey, Dave, how you doing, buddy? And you can't do that. And no one told me that. I didn't get that guidance right away on how to be that transition, because there is a transition in that. They didn't have a slot for me for officer candidate school, or we call knife and fork school,
right,
that teach you all the things that you're supposed to know as an officer. So I kind of winged it until one day, there again, a chief, my command master chief, I said something to the effect one day to somebody and called them by their first name, and Dave, it's just me. And he got me in the hallway and literally pushed me against the wall and go, "Sir, you can't call me Dave. You can't call him Jim. You're an ensign. You got to act like an ensign. You have to develop your leadership. You are different, and whether you like it or not, you can be friendly, but you cannot be friends. It's just you just can't." And that moment, it kind of dawned on me that you're kind of right. Now I know why if you get a commission, usually they transfer you to a different unit. So when you show up, you're, ensign so-and-so, and they expect you to be that way, and then you kind of act that way. But if you stay in your same unit, which was a huge mistake on the Navy's part for this particular situation, it made it difficult. Because I look back and see me as an ensign, I probably would have kicked my own butt. It's just, I wasn't good. So it takes, you've got to be able to listen to past and present mentors and future mentors as you're young. I don't care if you're an E1, E7, O1, O7, doesn't matter. As you go through that journey, you never do it by yourself. You never do. The successful ones recognize the fact that they do it on the wings and shoulders of others. I would never have succeeded in my career if it wasn't for the Master Chief Snyders of the world or other officers that I could either emulate or be totally different from, because bad leaders are just as helpful as good leaders are in developing your own skill sets. So, that's where I kind of stumbled my way through. I guess the focus is for success, it can't be about you. It can't, it's about the people that you serve. And that's why I'm such a strong proponent of servant leadership, where, my job is to take care of the people that work with me, move obstacles out of their way so they can do their job. And if you do that, if you constantly look out for the people, I hate to say under you, the people that you're responsible for. And it doesn't matter if you're an E5, it doesn't matter if you're an O5. The people that you are responsible for, your sole purpose is to protect and serve them so they can be successful. Because guess what? If you do that, they become successful, and so do you. Like, I've never been the brightest light bulb in the chandelier, but I always made sure that I surrounded myself with a lot of bright light bulbs. And so as a leader, it's important to talk, but it's more important to listen. And so as you sit there and formulate a career or an obstacle or a job that you have to get done, you've got to be able to listen to the people in the room that are a little smarter than you. And you got to acknowledge the fact that there are people in that room smarter than you. And that's how I think I was able to go from an E nothing to, I think, a relatively successful career after 39 years, raised in the ranks. And I try to take care of the people that got me there, and I try to take care of the people that are going to go there. I find a very, very strong pleasure in mentoring young officers, and I do that even as a retired admiral now. There's 2 Navy docs that I helped get in the Navy and are now widely successful out there in the fleet. I have a young corpsman who I met his mother after a deployment at the DMV, and she goes, "My son's," she goes, I was getting my license because I'd been gone over a year or so, and she goes, "I have a son that's going in the Navy," and I go, "Oh yeah, he wants to be a corpsman." And I go, "Well, that's I was a corpsman before I was a I think I was a captain at the time. If I was a captain," and She goes, would you mind talking to him? Because he's not quite sure. So I took him out to lunch a couple times in high school, and he joined the Navy, became a corpsman. This has been, 10 years now that he and I have been, communicating. Now he's going off to independent duty school.
Wow.
So, so those are things that are meaningful as well, is if you're fortunate enough to become successful in whatever you do, it's very important that you give back. Never forget where you came from. And, that's, to me, that's my legacy. People will forget the things that Admiral Hall accomplished while he was on station. And that's, because I'm a dime a dozen, but where anyone, a good leader, kind of lives forever in a way is their legacy and the people that you've helped after you. Because guess what? They're going to go on and do great things. And if you have seeded that a little bit in any way, then, that's a little bit of you left behind too. So
what advice would you give a young officer, a junior officer, and or an enlisted person, even junior enlisted? And what steps, if I want to find a mentor, what would you recommend they do to find them and then approach that mentor?
Yeah.
So that they know that it's genuine. They're not just trying to kiss up, to this person, but what
I would say
hard work and performance and humility and or questions or inquisitiveness or whatever. What would you say?
Okay. Well, I'll answer that a couple ways. First, I'll tell you what I told my son. Is a Marine Corps aviator, and
so your dad finally got his Marine.
Yeah, he got his Marine.
Well, he was pretty happy with you being fleet, FMF, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he would. No, he was. He was very happy. He was happy about that. He laughed because he got what he wanted. Me in the Marine Corps.
Right. That was his plan the whole time. Like, I can join the Navy.
I'm sure it was.
Foreman. Okay, that's almost a Marine.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get FMF.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Okay.
No, but what I would say to a let's say a new ensign, or what I would advise you to do is when you get to your ship or station, your very first duty station, you find a senior enlisted that's going to be working with you, chief or whatever, and you go up to that chief and you say, Chief, I'm Ensign Nobody. I don't know anything. I need your help. Will you teach me? If you do that, you will be successful, because then that chief or gunny sergeant will understand your humility and your sincerity to succeed, and that your ego's in check. And they will spend the time and effort to guide you, to make you successful. Because if you go in there acting like you know his job or her job, they'll shut down and they'll say, hey, okay, LT, you whatever you say. Mm-hmm. Crash and burn, whatever you say. Where the other approach, that gunny or chief is going to say, hey, LT, you're going to hit that wall, man. I don't think we should go there. You put the brake on, you're going to hit the wall. And then you put the brake and he'll guide you and help you. The other way, they'll let you hit the wall. And then it's on you. And it's not a made up anecdote. I had seen that too many times, where you'll get a wise ass ensign or a second lieutenant who just, for whatever, want to prove themselves, and they'll think they know more than enlisted, or that they're better than an enlisted guy. And that is so bad. That's a recipe of disaster right there, And then as far as the other approach, who to approach and how to approach it, say for a junior enlisted or even a junior officer to a senior officer, you got to have your goal set of kind of why you want this person as your mentor. Do you want to be like them, or do you want a job like they have? Or do you want to, look at the path that they had taken? So if that all checks, then you go up to that person and you just be honest with them. You say, Chief, my goal is to be a chief bosun mate someday, and I'm going to work hard and I'll be loyal, but I don't know the path. I don't know I'm not sure of what jobs I should be looking at and what are the steps to success to become what you are. Would you be willing to help me in that regard? If you tell them that, if you go that way, then there is that commonality bond that goes with it, and they'll be a lot more open to help you. But it's all about being upfront and honest, because I'll tell you, especially a chief, they could smell a BSer all day. So if you truly want to be and emulate them, then tell them, and a lot of them will be flattered and help you when they can, I think. But there again, adversity is not always bad, and you learn from it. And so, if you get pushed back a couple times, well, then you got pushed back a couple times. Then you just step up and you try a different approach. But the only one who loses if you quit is you, because I always have a saying: no one's ever going to love you as much as you in your entire life. So if you don't take care of yourself, and no one's going to do it more than you'll do it. So.
Right. Wow. So what would you, if you had to make a couple of course adjustments in your career, what would you have done more proactively? Would you have had a plan? Would you have put more hours into it? Would you have studied more? Would you have, or would you have, networked more, or anything?
I guess in my actual career, when I look at my career, the only thing I would have done different was when I got commissioned, to have done that a little better. Because, I think I've wasted year and a half, 2 years of opportunity there by trying to be HM2 Hall and always trying to find an angle, but, work the system, those sorts of things. I mean, I would have redone that, I think, in my book of work. But short of that, I don't think I would have changed anything, just because even though parts of it really sucked, I don't think I'd be the same person. I really don't. I think the hardships that you go through build the book of your work. It builds your story. And I think without adversity, success is kind of lame,
Right.
If you haven't felt the pain, you don't know what good feels like, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you got out of the military, you joined Baptist.
Yeah.
And so that transition, and do you have any advice for transitioning? I'm not, and I think most people think about, well, golly, if you're a captain or a colonel, you're probably not going to have any problems with transition, but they do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, going from especially the senior guys like me and all, transitioning into the civilian world, can be an eye opener. It can be very frustrating because things move like molasses, and when you're used to, making things happen, your judgment, boom, you go, we move. And, I'm a strong believer of 80% good is better than waiting around for 100% perfect. So let's get it, and we'll course correct as we go. Civilians, they're less risk averse. They're more risk averse, I guess. What I found, but I was fortunate though, because my master's is in healthcare administration, and so managing healthcare, military and civilian, there's a lot of similarities in it. But if you are a student of servant leadership to begin with, it makes the transition way easier, because the one thing I find a lot of senior guys is they're used to this autocratic environment where they're God and what I say and this is what we're doing and I don't care what you think. It doesn't work. It does not work in the civilian world. I will tell you, I've seen so many guys crash and burn for doing that. And unfortunately, not all of them are military. I've seen civilian guys come in and try to do that stuff. But, you have to be able to be a team player. You have to have compromise. You have to have, vision, which I think senior officers, or even some of the mid-grade officers who get out, if they understand that, they'll be fine.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing the story.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think this is something that every person should watch this and see that, the best laid plans that didn't work out, if you continue to move forward, adjust and overcome, you can end up being
with some kind of success. You can. Like I said, if you ask anybody on the USS Leary, in 1971, Seaman Hall was going to be an admiral someday, they would have laughed forever.
Did you ever run into somebody that knew you when you're an E2, 3, or whatever? Then you came back as captain or something?
I did, actually.
What was that?
I did. I was lieutenant commander at the time, and it was the guy I was on the ship with, friend of mine in the neighborhood, on the Leary. And, he just laughed. He couldn't believe I was a lieutenant commander. I go, oh. He accused me of going on the dark side. I go, yeah. But for them to see that I made flag, that would be something.
Yeah. Yeah. But what was that day like when you found out you're going to be selected as flag? What was that like?
It's hard to describe. I was so humbled and happy, because in the Medical Service Corps, they pick one admiral every 3 years.
Wow.
For what I do. And to say I was elated would be not doing it justice.
Right.
And then the fear of, can I really do this? I mean, because how I had the same impression of admirals myself. It's like, holy crap, Now they do send you to what they call flag school, and your wife has to go even. It's like a week-long indoctrination of here's how a flag officer has to behave. Here's how a flag officer spouse. Here, they go off and do their own track on how to be a spouse of a flag officer, and then we go off and then we learn all about the security issues and blah 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 blah. And it's like, which I'm a little bit overwhelmed at the time, but I'm so grateful that they did that, because I didn't want to be Ensign Hall again as an admiral. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, but it was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie to you. If anybody tells you that different, they're lying.
Yeah. What was, as an admiral, what was the one last question, I guess? What was the what do you think the most important role you had, or project that you led, or accomplishment as an admiral was?
Oh gosh. Well, my job, I was deputy commander for Navy Medicine West. So that was all Navy Marine Corps healthcare facilities on the West Coast and all of Asia.
Do you know Mark Godo, Captain Mark Godo? He's an ENT. Captain, retired.
Where was he? San Diego?
He was in San Diego, and he was the CEO of the integrated training branches. You know, when everybody started working together at the Air Force. When I was in, we never did anything with anybody else. It was just all Navy. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but
oh no.
He's a good friend of mine.
I
He's
mean,
on our VetCV advisory board too. So
yeah, I guess for me it was being able to be. God, there's a lot. You know, one thing I felt very comfortable in is being the kind of the ambassador for Navy medicine to the different nations in the Pacific and Asia that I got to represent U.S. Navy medicine in Korea, Japan, you know, alike, and sit down with my counterparts in those countries and discuss mutual, you know, medical readiness, combat medical readiness in a lot of the cases, shipboard medicine capabilities, those sorts of things. To be able to talk at that level, in that level, I think one of the I don't know, one of my high points where I first felt I was doing it right is that when I went we were in Japan, and I had a meeting with my Japanese counterpart who was a 2-star out there, and then met him, and you know the Japanese do it everything's very formal, very, you know, in a formal meeting place, and you know, like almost like peace talks kind of thing. You walk in and it's very formal, and he was very stoic, you know, Japanese fellow, and so I sensed that, and me, I'm pretty, you know, easygoing per se, and so to me, if I could get him loosened up, I felt pretty good. So we did our meeting. We're exchanging information, and at one point, he looked at me and he goes, you look like are you Japanese? I go, yes. I said, my mother's Japanese, you know, blah, blah, blah. We started talking. So I have 2 pictures. I have a picture when I first met him that, you know, our photographer took a picture, and it was very formal. And then I took it. They had a few pictures of us leaving, and he's hugging me and we're laughing, and, you know, and then I thought, okay, I think I can do this. You know, I think I can do this. And the key is just never abandon who you are. Yeah. You know, I think that's the true of my success, regardless of E1 or 07. I've never, at least I don't think I've ever changed. You know, I know how to act when I'm supposed to act, and I know how to loose when I want to be loose. So
yeah. Well, there's something I learned in. So I was, my last duty station I was the LPO of the ER at Balboa. And I continued my college degree at National University, which was actually started by a Navy captain, an aviator at Miramar back in the 70s, because San Diego State wouldn't accommodate for classes for his airmen, you know, at night. Yeah. So he started a college. Now it's the second largest university in California now. But wow. I went there, and I forget what my point was exactly. So I remember during my MBA, I did an international business emphasis and a finance emphasis. So, but on the international business side, you know, we talked about cultures and business, and the Japanese were a big much bigger trading partner on a relative scale than they are today. But one of the things that we learned was that if you go to Japan to do business, you should book a one-way ticket, because you should not predispose. It's almost an insult that if you go in to conduct business with them at the time, that you have a plan to leave. You should be willing and able to stay as long as you need to. And then there's the meetings for the day, But the real business and the relationship happens outside the real business at night.
Oh, absolutely.
Stay up and stick with it, right? And be willing to do whatever you need to do for days on end, probably.
Yep.
Until
I cannot tell you how many Korean karaoke bars I've been to with my Korean counterparts. Just keep those relationships. That makes a big, because then the next day when the business hits the platform, it's a whole different picture. They look at you different. And they trust you, and it's and you don't have to get sloppy drunk or stupid, but you just got to be there, with them.
Right. Well, very good, Admiral.
All right, boss.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I think this insight will be extremely valuable to some young person that's going to see this and say, hey, pretty interesting,
you can screw up and still do out all right.
Yeah, that's right. Well, just your personality too. I mean, that's one of the things I've learned to appreciate since I've gotten to know you and watching you as a leader for the West Florida Defense Alliance, which is really where we connect mostly. Right. It's impressive. And, I was recruited here by the CEO of Sacred Heart in 1995. And viewers, Admiral Hall was at the other guy, Baptist Health System. So we were rivals a little bit. Probably still are.
I don't care anymore.
No. Well, you're retired now, and I've been with Sacred Heart for 23 years. So I'm friends with everybody.
There you go. That's the key to success, man.
That's right. Well, thanks again, Admiral.
All right.
Thanks for sharing.
All right.
Really important. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thanks. See you later.
All right. Bye.